Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Eli Beckman. I'm the mayor. We've got a whole bunch of our top staff here. We've got Town Manager Todd Cusimano, Assistant Town Manager and Town Clerk Rebecca Vaughn, Planning and Building Director Adam Wolf, our Code Enforcement Officer and Communications Manager Mike Moriarty, Fire Chief Ruben Martin, Public Works Director RJ Suko. I don't know if there's anybody else lurking here with their video off, but we've got a lot of folks here to answer your questions. Just want to give you guys a kind of brief update. Your council and staff have been fairly consumed for the last couple of weeks by this whole Project Home Key thing. I think a lot of the folks who are on the line today also joined us for our last community chat when we had Supervisor Rodoni with us as our special guest. That ended up being pretty much exclusively a discussion about Home Key. Seems to be that that's kind of the main issue that's on residents' minds these days, and understandably so. We want to give you kind of a quick update about where things stand there. I just attended the Board of Supervisors meeting that they held this morning where they did vote. They went ahead and voted to proceed with purchasing the hotel at 1591 Casa Buena. So that's moving forward. I did give public comment, kind of just reiterating the points that we've all been talking about here in Corte Madera over the last weeks, which is that, look, if you guys are going through with this, we need a seat at the table and we need to be a partner in determining what the criteria are, what does success look like for this project, not only for the residents who are going to live there, but also for, the surrounding residents and commercial neighbors. So we're trying to problem solve with the county on that, trying to be a partner there. We are currently accepting applications for a task force that's going to consist of county officials, town officials, and our own residents. Hopefully that task force will be empowered by the county to really have a lot of influence in driving major factors of this project with regards to both its physical development and also the operation, the program that's implemented there. So we're really hopeful that this task force is going to be going forward a really useful body for problem solving and making sure that the project that develops over there on Casa Buena is going to be something that's going to serve residents well, both residents at that facility and surrounding residents in Corte Madera. If you want to apply and sit on that task force, please go to the town's website. We've got a whole information page just related to Home Key that we put up, even though it's not our project. We're doing the best we can to put out information as we get it from the county, and the applications for this task force are there. One other thing that I want to mention on that front is I'm pushing to have hopefully our supervisor, Dennis Rodoni, come to Corte Madera either this weekend or next and do an in-person, outdoor, socially distanced, COVID-safe office hours, hopefully at the actual site at the motel in Corte Madera where they're planning to do this project. I think it's important. I think it's kind of a next level of accountability for our supervisors who are driving this project to actually come to our community and be here at the site answering residents' questions in person. So I'm hopeful that we're going to make progress putting an event together there, and we'll be sure to blast it out through all of our communication channels if we're able to secure an event like that. The last thing I wanted to say is another thing that was touched on at this morning's Board of Supervisors meeting is that winter is coming. COVID is not gone away yet. So I think we're in the orange tier right now still, but we're definitely seeing a slight uptick. And Dr. Willis, our public health officer, actually showed us a graph that if our current trajectory continues, we're going to be back in the red zone within a week or two, which means more closures of Corte Madera businesses. So none of us want that. So just the same old reminder that it's getting cold out there. It's flu season. Please wear your mask. Please socially distance. We can beat this virus. We just got to keep our caseload down. That's all I've got. So I'll turn it over to Todd and the staff for any updates from them, and then we'll go ahead and take questions.
Thanks, boss. I think you said it perfect. Winter is coming, but I think it's been the entire year has been winter. It's been a tough one. So we want to listen and keep having our conversation about Home Key moving forward. This is going to be a conversation that we're going to have in our community, for a while. And so that's, as you said, boss, it's so important that, we have this working group in place, and a lot of people were concerned about having a voice or what the authority of this working group would be. And, having the town would be representative of all levels of our town, our government and residents and business owners. And so this will be a pretty powerful group moving forward. That's how we see it. That's what we'll demand. That's what the mayor said today to the Board of Supervisors, and has been pretty consistent in his voice with that. And so we're going to roll up our sleeves and do the work, and we look forward to continuing that conversation. We were, as RJ said, our Public Works Director at a previous meeting, full steam ahead on really attacking and paving and doing slurry seals for our roadways. I know there were some concerns about communication and some things that happened, this past week. And so RJ is here, and, we're happy to talk about those, talk out loud of, what happened and, so we all understand what happened, but also, some things that we can do better. We always want to be better. It's one of the reasons why we brought David Marquez in as a project manager to really ensure that, we do things the right way. And so, RJ has been really busy with this team and they've been doing a great job, but we're happy to have that conversation today. We had at a previous council meeting, and moving forward, you'll see this topic on the agenda over the next 6 months, probably up to 10 times for the community. It's a big one. It's adding another tool to our toolbox potentially of how we handle unfunded liabilities. On this council meeting, we're going to ask the council, we've been given direction to come back to them and start the court validation process to position ourselves early next year to consider potentially bonding our unfunded liability, which would potentially open up $500,000 to $600,000 annually for us to fund, our retiree health, our pension trust. It just adds another tool in our toolbox. So everybody, please look out for that conversation. Please be involved. It's a really important issue. Again, we will attack it, our social media and our communications plan moving forward. It's really a big opportunity, for the town.
Todd, would you say that a good analogy for that is kind of like refinancing a mortgage, sort of? Is that a fair analogy?
It would be. Thank you. So it'd be, having a 30-year mortgage at 7%, and we're looking at refinancing it to, the same amount of time. Actually, this would be a 20-year mortgage at 7%, and we're looking to do a 20-year mortgage at potentially 3.25%, 3.5%. And then that savings, of evaluation of what do we do with that and how do we handle that on a year-to-year basis. Yeah. The other one, just the communications plan. I think when you talk about slurry seals, you talk about home key, this town staff and this council of lessons learned, and the community members that are on this call know better than anyone that process and communication is the most important thing moving forward. It's what gets people knocked off of a council, and it gets town managers like me fired. It's the most important thing that our community has set in place going years back. And it's something that the council takes very seriously and has an expectation for your manager and staff to make sure we communicate and we ensure the right process is in play. And that's what's so important about home key. And we hear you loud and clear, but it's also important of how we communicate, when we talk about, how we slurry seal, everything that we do as a town. And so that's why we community chat, so we can engage you. You have more than 1 minute, like the Board of Supervisors gave our community members today. We engage you, and we can't always get the conversation in today. We'll be right back 2 weeks from now and continue it. Mike Moriarty, he's on the call. He's changed it to communications. Well, he is our code enforcement official, but he's also our communications director, and it's huge. And so he's not there to spin things and be a spin doctor and talk at us. He's there to engage and go, we need to do this. We need to do a better job. Look at, the conversation over here on Nextdoor or on this email tree. Let's engage and let's engage and let's engage. And so he's on board full time now. We're looking forward to having him involved and really engage in our community moving forward. And then just 2 more things. Finance. So as we go to the mid-year, there's a whole bunch of things in play. We talked about possibly refinancing and bonding our unfunded liabilities. We're also, staff has a big meeting on Thursday with HDL, who evaluates looking back and then looking forward our sales tax revenue. It's a big one for us. It generates over $10+ million annually for our community. We're going to get that report, which will be a big one that'll set the stage for December to come to the council and community to share with you how we're trending this year, kind of trying to get out of this COVID situation. Where are we financially? And then following that, the town manager and staff, we would like to take something to the council and the community towards the end of the year, once we understand that number, and talk to the council and community about options of what do we do at town hall. As we said in other meetings, we will never operate town hall like we saw pre-COVID. It won't happen, and we're going to have to look at alternatives. And right now, the 3 alternatives that have pros, and everyone has pros and cons, but it's the current town hall project that we've been talking about. What are those costs? It's in the $8.5 million range, but what are the pros and cons of that? What are the pros and cons of just leasing office space and moving from our current facility into office space? That cost is about $300,000 to $400,000 annually to do that. And so what are the pros and cons to that? The third one might be looking at potentially buying office space and a property to have revenue, but also move our staff there or long term. And so those are three options that we promised the community and council that we would come back to at some point with some numbers, and just have, again, a decision won't be made in this meeting, but we want to start the conversation for us to think about, you know, how do we get to a decision over the next 6 months? And so please look out for that. That will definitely be probably the second meeting in December. But again, we're starting to get some knowns financially where we can have this conversation. And then just lastly, most importantly, it's my proudest thing in 2020. You know, when we promoted, you know, Scott Schertz, our fire chief, retired. We had a great candidate to replace him. We made him our interim fire chief. It was Ruben Martin. You know, he's just done really an outstanding job. Both myself and my cohort, Dan Schwartz, and Larkspur Med, we did an assessment and evaluation of his performance over the past few months, as well as, you know, our council members, our community members, and our cohorts. And it was just the easiest decision. We're going to announce on Thursday that Ruben is our full-time fire chief. Get rid of that interim tag and just let him, you know, take the seatbelt off and let him go do his thing. And so he's just been really outstanding. So Ruben, congratulations. And we're really excited to see you, you know, just go and do your thing. So congrats. That's all I have, boss.
Awesome. Thank you. Does anybody else want to give any updates before we open this up to the public for questions? Yeah, Adam.
Yeah, thanks. I was just going to highlight, I was going to mention it at the last chat, but we obviously had a full plate at our last community chat. But I wanted to recognize some of the work we're doing in the planning department and some information that folks may want to check out. We've been doing a lot of work and really led by our senior planner, Martha Battaglia, on accessory dwelling units, and sort of just providing information for folks who may be interested in considering accessory dwelling units. There's a new website out called adumarin.org, which has some testimonials by some Corte Madera residents and others that are really, I think, inspiring, just to think about what additional, what things you might be able to consider on your property and additional housing options. It's really, I think, trying to make this an easier process for people to actually consider. We're also actually tonight at the Planning Commission, Martha will be giving a presentation on some of these resources. So if you have time tonight, we'll be doing that at 7 o'clock this evening at the Planning Commission. So just wanted to give you a heads up on that. And then we also have been working on objective design and development standards in the background of everything else that's going on. This is an important project in the planning department. We had a meeting with our working group made up of local architects. The mayor wasn't at the last one, but is definitely part of this group, an important part of this group. Local community members and developers, different perspectives on actually how to develop standards, design standards for multifamily housing. As we know, this is something that we're going to have to really more seriously consider in our community moving forward as we get into sort of thinking about planning for housing in the next 10 years and decade going forward. So that was a meeting that was open and available for public to come and comment and see what we're doing. There's a website on that too. So please just reach out if any of these things spark some interest in your mind and you want to get involved. We're here to help you get involved. And so you can always reach out to me, awolff, WOLFF, at tcmmail.org. So I'll just stop with those announcements, but wanted to let you all know what some of the long range work that we're long range planning work that we're working on. So
beautiful. Thank you, Adam. RJ.
Yeah, 2 quick updates if I may. So we have our climate adaptation plan workshop next Thursday, the 19th, from 6 to 8 p.m. That's a Zoom workshop, and we have information on our town webpage, and have also been sending that out via Nextdoor and other avenues. And then secondly, on the topic of slurry seal, I'm happy to answer any questions about, you know, what we've seen to date and process, but we are suspending the remainder of the project due to weather, and likely will not start that back up until June. And as you can see, it's starting to feel a lot like fall, and that's a type of construction installation that needs that warm temp. So unfortunately, we have to pause and pick it up next spring, summer.
Hey, RJ, I know that I asked.
Oh, go ahead, Todd.
I was just going to ask, I know that we talked about, to the council, I think you said we were going to try to really attack almost 20% of the roadways and slurry seal them. And now that we're stopping it, were we able to do at least 50%, like 10% of the roadways? Do you know how much we were able to get done?
Somewhere we completed about 50%, and the other, and actually I think after we added Madera and Redwood, you know, that goes up a little more above 20%, but we'll still pick it up. You know, long term, it won't change our work plan and our whole delivery model.
And I was just going to ask real fast. I see that some of the roads where you guys have done the slurry seals, they haven't been like painted or striped yet. There's no crosswalks or lane lines yet. Are you guys going to do that, or is that also suspended?
Yeah. So they, all the striping will either have temporary striping putting back for the streets that weren't completed. So they have some temp paint now, but they'll refresh it and add some of those reflective beads that are helpful for visibility at night. And then for the streets that did get the slurry seal, they'll still get striped here in the next week or two as weather allows.
Got it. Thank you. Great updates, guys. We're going to open this up to the public for questions now. So anybody on the line, if you've got a question for any of us, please go ahead and throw your hand up on Zoom and we will get you on here. We're going to start off with Barbara and then go to Phyllis.
I didn't realize I'd be first. Sorry, wasn't ready. Yeah, well, thanks again for all your good work. Couple questions came up. Can you tell me offhand, in terms of the building, you know, what we call the Wind Cup project, but it's the Tummel Vista building.
Tamridge.
Tamridge, yeah. How many of them ended up actually going to low income or middle income people? Do we have any answer to that? I'm curious.
Yeah, I'm happy
Adam,
to.
I think that's you.
Yeah, sure. At the end of the day, there were 18 units, so 10% of the total number of units built there, and it broke down roughly to 4 very low income units, which is about 50% of the area median income. There was another 12. The majority of them were for low income residents, which were up to 80% of the area median income for families and individuals earning that much. And then 2 were moderate income units, and that is almost market rate. It ends up being 120% of AMI there. So that's the breakdown there.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Okay. And the other question was, do you have any updates on the redo of the Best Western Motel? Because I know people are interested now.
Yeah, sure. You know, I know the next step in the process would be that the applicant and the Best Western folks are looking to come to the Planning Commission for one of those preliminary study sessions, which is more a conceptual level, taking their sort of some feedback and their designs and concepts a little bit, the next step, and sort of reviewing those with the Planning Commission. Okay. No date's been scheduled, but I think they're trying to, again, work with their architecture team and work with the rest of their team to sort of further develop that proposal. So you'll be hearing more about that soon. They were encouraged by what they heard at the last meeting, and so are taking that and running with it and moving forward.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you, Barbara. And Adam, related question, just since Barbara brought up affordable units at Tamridge, just out of curiosity, when a new like multi-unit development gets done in Corte Madera, do we have like a required minimum % of those units that have to be low income?
Yeah, so our ordinance, we have an inclusionary ordinance, which requires right now that any project with 10 or more units requires that 5% be very low income, 10% be low income, and 10% moderate. The Tamridge project did sort of get developed under modified rules, but standard is what I just mentioned. So ultimately it ends up being 25%. I will say it's actually a good preview. That's another project that we're going to be working on as part of some grant funding. We are going to take another look at our inclusionary ordinance and see if that's the right fit for Corte Madera, whether or not we think that that's going to continue to facilitate new development, whether it hinders it, whether it's the right amount of affordability, those sorts of questions. We're going to come back to the community after some analysis and sort of have another discussion about that
That's great.
in the next year. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. We're going to go to Phyllis and then Lucinda.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Two things, both having to do with home key. Number one, after Todd's report, it shows that the Board of Supes is continuing to fail miserably in how they're handling this. And I find it appalling that when Kate Sears, as board president, limits people to 1 minute to speak, which gives them a chance to say hello and then clear their throats, that the other four sit there like puppets waiting for someone to pull their strings. I cannot understand why any of them can't open their mouths and tell her this is not how you treat people. She also did this to the people from Marin City. But moving on to something else, still on home key, there will be a letter in tomorrow's IJ from a woman named Diane Lynch, who lives in Tiburon, who is attacking Corte Madera. She's also Novato, and she's also added in San Rafael, and I haven't seen any problems coming out of San Rafael about the use of the, I think it's an office building, referring to us as NIMBYs, the wrath. And what I think is, besides talking to the people from Corte Madera, and these chats do a very good job, and what is it? I think it is time for Todd and Eli jointly to write a voice, a Marin voice in the IJ. And I think it's important that it's both the mayor and the town manager, because it shows its staff and the elected officials explaining that this is supported, but what has been questioned is the process. And these are the steps that are being taken. And I know there was something in the IJ from the county, but don't leave it to Dennis to do it. This is something that has to come from the town, and put it out there for people to see. We as a town are behind this. The residents aren't hating, aren't looking at those people not belonging, etc. It's the process and how to do it right so everybody succeeds. That's it.
Great. Thank you, Phyllis. I don't know if you were on the Board of Supervisors meeting this morning, but if you were, you may have heard my public comment. I also got 1 minute, and Todd was mentioning that it's kind of crazy that folks commenting on the Nevada project got 2 minutes, and then when it came to time to public comment on the Corte Madera project specifically, Katie Rice brought it down to 1 minute, so I didn't really have time to give any of the context that I was hoping to give or anything like that. Ended up having to do a really kind of abridged version of the comments I'd been hoping to make. But what I said spoke exactly to your point, that I was letting the supervisors know that what we're seeing here in Corte Madera is that the majority of residents are open to this project. They just have questions and concerns, and they need answers. That's it. And so, it's like we've been saying, it's frustrating. The process is frustrating. The lack of outreach is frustrating, because I think for a lot of us here in town, we're not opposed to the idea of giving shelter to our vulnerable residents. I think a lot of us care very deeply about that, as we're hearing. Folks just want to know, what the details of the project are. They want to know what the funding looks like in the coming years, things like that. So we're hopeful that moving forward with this task force that we're setting up, we're going to be able to have a better pipeline of information and kind of a more hands-on role for Corte Madera's residents and for our town staff. So hopefully we'll be able to kind of fix that problem. But I totally agree with you. Totally hear your frustrations there. So thank you for speaking to that. We're going to go to Lucinda next.
Good afternoon, and thank you very much for, again, doing this. I think all of us that participate really appreciate it. Todd, I had a question. You mentioned, and I wasn't quick enough to take it all in, that there's a new project manager at the very beginning of your comments. I think you said his name was Dave something. What is he going to be the head of project? What project?
Thanks, Lucinda, and I can have RJ jump in. But this was actually RJ's brainchild, and I give him a lot of credit. So as we passed this sales tax measure and we had this really nice pot of money, and then it's now time to deliver these great projects. And what we found is we were spending, $300,000 to $500,000 annually on project managers overseeing these projects at a really high cost. But then we were having issues as we delivered the projects, how we communicate with the community, overseeing the project to make sure it's delivered on a timely fashion. And so RJ did an analysis for council last year and recommended that we hire a project manager with the sales tax measure funds to oversee our capital improvement projects. And so he's assigned to a number of big picture projects he oversaw with Chris Good, our other senior engineer, the Tamil Vista project that went really smoothly. It was because of the two of them and the good work that they did. And so he's on board now to oversee our projects. And so we don't use an outside contractor anymore. We use in-house staff to oversee the contractor, perform the work. I don't know if he was on the slurry seal project or not, and RJ can speak to it, but it has been successful to date. And I'm kind of interested to know, how that process worked this time too. RJ.
Yeah. So, David Marquez, he came from the contracting world, and I knew him before we hired him, and he was always a really good communicator and understands both the construction side of things and then how to communicate with the public. But when a couple years ago, I would say 90% of the projects that we were constructing were being managed by consultants at a much higher cost and rate. And so now we're down to, it kind of ebbs and flows depending on the number of projects and when they come in, but definitely less than half and maybe a third are construction management, and the rest are in-house. And we're that results in a lot of cost savings. And then also just better communication, better coordination. And actually, to speak to it a little bit, we actually have one of the projects we do have construction management on this year is the slurry job. And so we have someone that's inspecting the contractor, but we still are getting roped into all of the communication issues and all of the coordination issues, yet we're paying this high price for their services. And so part of that was just, at the time we were so inundated with the amount of work and wanted to bring someone who had that specialty in the slurry inspection. But there is a difference. We feel, if we could have 3 Davids and 3 Chris's and 3 Jareds, and, we would just do everything in-house. But we're trying to find that balance between outside services and the folks that we have.
Just to continue on with that, you mentioned Tam Ridge. Is there any kind of ongoing monitoring to ensure that the low cost or the low to moderate housing is maintained? I don't know what the rules are, but does somebody grow out of that as their income increases? And then what happens? I mean, I just am not that familiar with it, but it seems to me that if we lose those housing units, we put ourselves as a town as being underrepresented in that area.
Yeah, I could speak to that, Lucinda. Yes, every year we get a report, I review it. There's income qualification requirements for folks who are in those units. Obviously, the goal might be that somebody who is very low income moves up to the low income unit. If those become available, they are doing better financially, they can move up to the moderate income unit if they want to continue living there, and then ultimately out into market rate units. And then that frees up another unit for another family or individuals who may have lower incomes to then occupy those units. So yes, we are in very we're in close contact with the management company over there. They actually transitioned to a new management company about a year ago, but they have, the project seems to be working well for both the market rate units and the affordable housing and lower income units. And obviously you go over there and you would never, can't tell which is which really when you go over there. So that's the idea.
Thank you, I appreciate that. And then I wondered, Todd, if you could maybe talk to Chief Norton and ask him if he would maybe give us an update, what's going on from the police side, how things are going, any recommendations that he needs our help on. And I'd also say the same thing to Chief Martin. By the way, congratulations. That's terrific. If we could have maybe some more formalized, I don't mean to demean that the chats aren't formalized, but I mean, I'd like to see something that we get as maybe quarterly or something that is a communication so that it gets our town folks to be more engaged, and also the interaction I think would be very helpful on all parties. And then let's see, I would like to pass on to, I think it's Ashley, with regard to the dog park. It still is not very good. We allocated the space, but we haven't finished the project, and it's the ground covering is just not adequate. It's not something you want to go in and let your dog enjoy. It's a big dirt pit. Thank you.
Thank you, Lucinda. Those were some great questions and points you brought up there. Thank you, Adam and RJ, for those great answers. We actually don't have any other hands up right now. So folks, don't be shy if you've got questions. Go ahead and throw up your hand. We'd be happy to get you on here and answer any questions you may have. We're going to take Lynn now.
Hi, I am still working and didn't have an opportunity to attend the Board of Supervisors meeting. And I'm wondering if, sorry, I don't mean to take us backwards, but if you could do like a 2-second update. And then I just wanted to say, I'm not against it, but I don't think that the wording should be that the majority of the town is for it. Under the circumstances as it stands right now, I think it's divided. And I think that while you addressed, I think it was Phyllis's request of writing a letter to the IJ and thanked her for the comment, I didn't hear a commitment of how you are passing on the questions. None of mine have been directly answered yet. Thank you.
Sure thing. Thanks, Lynn. So to recap the Board of Supervisors meeting, they did vote to go ahead with the purchase of the property. So that was the big kind of action that was taken. I'd say the other kind of main feature was the public comment. So we got a lot of Corte Madera residents giving comment at that meeting, some for the project and some against. I would say it sounded like a much more even split than we have heard in our previous town council meetings here in Corte Madera. So that was surprising to me, but I gave public comment sort of on behalf of our town here and what we've been hearing, and just let the county know that, look, if this is something that you intend to go forward with, if you want this to be successful in Corte Madera, you really need to bring Corte Madera to the table, give us a seat at the table, make us a partner, you know, and make sure that our residents and our community have some input into how this project develops. So that was kind of the main sort of takeaway. I only had a minute to give my public comment, as did most Corte Madera residents. Todd noted that we actually have been giving at our town council meetings, we've been giving residents more time than that to comment on this project, and it's not even our project. So it was unfortunate that they kind of limit our time like that. I was really trying to help the supervisors understand that, you know, kind of speaking to your point, this is a project that I think the process has been so kind of bungled and so compressed that it's almost verging, especially among some folks, on becoming toxic. And that's just, it's such a shame because it's not inherently a bad project. I think there are real upsides for Corte Madera, but the way that it's being executed is just frankly unacceptable. This is not something that you know, we are okay with. I think Todd has spoken really well in the past to the fact that it's seeming like sort of a cultural difference between the town and the county is coming to stark relief, where we, over the past several years, have been working very hard on communicating very proactively with our residents whenever we have large land use issues like this. And the county's approach seems to be much more kind of, you know, full steam ahead, but, you know, like, we're here if you want to ask us questions, but we're not going to reach out. And so I told our supervisors, look, you guys haven't done any direct contact with our residents or with us to that, you know, for that matter. It's like most of our council learned the substantial details of this project the same way our residents did, which was when it broke in the IJ at the end of September. So that's unacceptable. There's no excuse for that. So that's kind of, I think, you know, where things stand. In terms of questions that you have about the project, that you don't feel have been directly answered. Happy to chat through some of them with you right now, but again, it's not our project. It's a county project. Right. So I would really recommend that you talk with, Ashley Hart McIntyre.
Sorry, excuse me.
No, go ahead.
I did. I emailed both. I mean, it's hard to, like do these. I think I've been at maybe 4 or 5 meetings so far on this, and I'm trying to make it a priority. But like the timing of the board of, I can't. I'm still working full time. But
of course,
like one of the questions was, is Catholic Charities in solidly, and might there be some kind of security for proximate residents? I mean, I'm a senior, I live alone, and the steps lead right to my house. And, I realize that they're not all dangerous. And I've commented before, I don't think this is like King Street where they're sharing living rooms and kitchens and they were, vetted differently. I'm mostly worried about the early part of the project when it's not even supportive housing, but I think it's more interim housing. And I haven't been made comfortable. And I think that there were comments about like the landscaping, which is lovely and stuff, but that's not my concern, honestly. I don't want to be scared in my home, and I'm scared in my home.
Lynn, can I jump in? So this is Todd, and then Adam, I think you want to jump in too. But what we heard and what we know to date, again, we're not going to feel, none of us are going to feel completely good and comfortable today. Because of this process. And I'm happy to walk back in time of just a key few steps. But first, I want to make sure that we answer your questions to the best that we can, because they're really good ones and they're important ones. I've read your emails. I've heard your frustration over some of these calls. And so I want to make sure that, we start that conversation. And when we talk about this advisory group, this task force, however you want to call it, between the council, staff, the community, Catholic Charities will be this short-term housing. They will oversee it. They will be operating there 24/7. You'll have on-site people there from Catholic Charities 24/7. You'll also have security there after hours when, this first year. And then, we've talked about this transition of when do they transition from the short-term transitional to long-term. And what we heard today, it was actually the first time, Adam, that I heard it. But they actually committed to, Lily from the county committed to the fall of 2021 is when they're going to try to transition this to long-term. And then that's the question that really it's our first decision point, Lynn, that we need to get our group together and really press the county on who is that long-term party going to be. We've understood it to be Homeward Bound. Homeward Bound has a great reputation. It brings us comfort as a town, as staff, as a community, I think. But again, they haven't done that process yet. And so we want to make sure that we're engaged quickly and we start to get those answers as we go. And so we're not going to have them today, but we will have those long-term answers as we move forward, and the town will have a voice because your council and your staff in the community, we're going to demand it. So we're in this together, moving forward. And so, it's a moving target, but we got some good notes. And so here's some good notes. It's Catholic Charities first year. We're going to try to transition by the fall of 2021 to long-term housing. We know that they're going to have 24/7 on-site staff, resources. They're going to have security on site, security cameras on site. Our group, because the town is going to demand it, and we want it in writing over the next 3 weeks from the county as a commitment, like the mayor said, we want to evaluate metrics on a routine basis. We want this task force group to be the people that evaluate it. How are we doing? Do we have any issues on site? So there's a code of conduct. People are held to a code of conduct while they're on site. And so we want to share that. It's in the fact sheet. We want to communicate what that is. But it's a drug-free, it's an alcohol-free, it's a crime-free zone. And so if you violate those, you can't stay there. And so really quickly, this group, as we identify problems, if it's CMPA or anyone else, our police department, we can get the group and we can handle it immediately. It's similar to how we handled our affordable housing project on San Clemente years ago. It was really successful on how we move forward. And so we're following that kind of blueprint of lessons learned. The other point is, there are governmental code sections that potential roadblocks of saying, okay, well, we can't as a town say who can stay there or not. There's certain criteria when you get home key funding that you're held state and federally. But there are also decision points of how they consider who can stay there. If you're a lifetime sexual offender registrant, you can't receive this funding. You can't be in this housing. If you committed certain felonies in the last 3 years and been convicted of it, you can't stay in the housing. You know, you can't be considered. And so that's the information that your staff is trying to get from the county now in the fact sheet information. And there's a lot of information going out, so you can get overwhelmed then, you know, but this is the stuff that we're working on now. And we've approached it, as Phyllis said, not as like we're NIMBYs and we're going to say no because we don't want this in our backyard. We've approached this not like Milpitas, not like Novato. They're different projects. We've approached it if this is what success looks like for Corte Madera. We're going to be partners. And I want to share a document with everybody in a second because I want you to understand as staff and a council why we'd ever consider this, because there were some decisions we made as a community and a county years ago, and it's actually in writing, and I want to share that. But we're starting to do the work and get there, Lynn, to get some answers. The thing that the mayor touched on that is frustrating for all of us, all levels, as council members, as your manager, as your planning director, and as a community, it's a culture with the county, and COVID-19 really taught me this since March to right now. The things that have, from a partnership standpoint between the cities and towns with each other and then the cities and towns with the county, we have so many major fractures amongst us right now because it's a cultural difference of how we operate and how we make decisions. The county just doesn't think like we do. They just don't. They're good people, they're good staff, they're really smart, and they want to do the right thing, but they have no idea. It's almost like, and I've said this to them and I'll say it publicly and I'll stand by it. It sounds like much smarter than I am as a town manager, right? But they can write a great white paper on how things should work and how to problem solve an issue, but they have no idea when the boots hit the ground of how to get from point A to point B in one piece and get the work done of the community. They can't do it. They just constantly mistake after mistake after mistake. So I'm not going to defend them. I'm frustrated like you are, we all are, but we're here. We can't, you know, stop the purchase of this, right? They can do whatever they want. They can purchase it, but can the town and the council said this, all options are on the table. We have a closed session on Thursday. We'll continue to talk about this as a council and staff. Everything's on the table, but if you can meet our success points, we're going to be partners, because I want to touch on something that we've agreed to as a town, as a community about this issue in a second. So as long as we can get there and we feel comfortable, this working group's in place and we can problem solve, we're going to ride. We're going to do the good work and do something really special. This is a generational opportunity to have money. The process has been thrown out the window. It just has. And the state is going to attack us in housing, affordable housing, and projects like this. They're going to throw money on the table, but they're going to dictate law to us. And so we're going to be under attack as cities and towns for the next decade. It's just, that's our reality. And so how do we handle that? And we said in another meeting, I'm like, let's show the rest of this county and the Bay Area how we problem solve, how we do business. And so we can only control ourselves. And so that's, sorry to be long-winded, but I mean,
I appreciate it very much. And thank you. Was there an answer, Todd, about initially, is it deemed supportive housing or is it just interim housing? I mean, initially it's just a shelter straight up, right?
Yes, no, it's still supportive housing. And also just to your specific question, Lynn, we were told today, and I was told this yesterday by staff, that by Friday, there should be actually the contract with Catholic Charities will be part of a staff report that goes to the Board of Supervisors next Tuesday for action. So we should all actually see in writing exactly what's part of that contract, which we were told today would include not only supportive services, they said a part-time therapist would be actually on the site, the security, all those things that Todd mentioned earlier. So, you know, we are, you know, I think they are working on getting the answers. It's tough to sit here and wait and not know them, and we're all in that position. But I think as long as we keep forcing the issue, the information will be coming. It's just.
Thank you. One more question, if I may. I know at some of the meetings it's come up how desperately, you know, sidewalk are needed and an improvement as a barrier between the street and the freeway entrance, and better lighting and landscaping and et cetera, et cetera. I know some of that will be an ask with the Home Key project and or the county. Some of it ultimately will, I would suspect, fall to the town and the taxpayers and become maybe a priority that it wouldn't have been had it not, had this particular project not arose, is that a word? Arose now. And I mean, I don't really have like a, and so therefore, but I mean, it's just a reality when, you know, when we're saying, okay, there's not going to be the tax base for this. I mean, you know what, we need to house our unhoused. I get it. And we do a decent job of that, I think, in Corte Madera, although I don't think we're credited for it because they are so subtle, like the San Clemente projects. And so I truly, I really didn't want to say like, I'm not an NIMBY, I work with these people. I really, you know, like, I hope that just is a given. But I do have concerns about, really about the safety and about the fitness of this property. That's academic at this point, but also the future costs and where it takes our priorities. And I guess I'm a little fatigued, not at this particular organization, but just in the past of sort of beg for forgiveness and in Corte Madera, rather than what I think you're trying to do really nicely, which is let's build something, let's create what success can look like.
Loud and clear, Lynn. And I'll just say, since you brought up kind of the sidewalks and issues there, so we totally hear you and your neighbors on that. There is actually a kind of overhaul of Casa Buena Drive scheduled for a year or two out on the horizon. It's going to be the same complete streets treatment that we did on Tamil Pius and then on Tamil Vista. So that's coming to Casa Buena. And then we're also going to be asking the county to support us. I think we've got kind of a notional agreement at this point, but we're going to be continuing to press them on supporting us for some more grant money from TAM, the Transportation Authority of Marin, so that we can get even more funding specifically related to this project, which I really see as kind of necessary, like offsite mitigations. Essentially, it's like, you know, hey, if we're doing this project in the Casa Buena area, we want the county to back us up when we ask you know, TAM for money for sidewalks, for street lighting, you know, that sort of thing, for beautification even, and litter abatement. So we totally hear you on that, and we definitely, I think, agree with you that there are synergies here that we can capitalize on. And kind of make this project be something that actually lifts up the entire neighborhood. Todd, did you say you had a document that you want to share? And then I also saw Rebecca's hand.
Yes, go ahead, Rebecca.
Thank you, Mayor Beckman. I just wanted to jump in with a question I received, about a half an hour ago from Karen Gerbosi to our public comment email. She's on the call, but she's on her phone and she isn't. But it seems like a good time to ask this question. It asks, would Eli speak to how satisfied he is with the cooperation that the town of Corte Madera is going to get from the various parties in the Project Home Key? Is he confident that those parties, as well as the county, are going to be good partners? Can we be confident that our residents' concerns will not only be heard, but will be suitably responded to?
Good question, Karen. Thank you. The county doesn't do anything maliciously, so you know, I think that they do have our interests, you know, our residents' best interests at heart. But the question is for us, and what we've been working on is really just making sure that they understand that Corte Madera, our residents, need to be partners in this whole project. I've been very candid with our supervisor and a couple of the other supervisors, just saying, look, you know, I'm not sure that you guys actually grasp the kind of depth of unease in our community about this project, and that's a big issue. You know, and as I've said earlier on this call, it's just, you know, people in town by and large are open to this, but they've got questions and they've got concerns and they need answers. And I think they deserve answers, right? That's a perfectly reasonable thing. We've been getting lots of public comment from folks who specifically say, you know, I'm not necessarily against this, but I want to know who's going to be living here. How are they chosen? What's it going to look like? What's the funding guarantee down the line? All these things. And that's where we've been seeing frustration, is in getting these answers from the county. So I hope that kind of answers your question, Karen. It's, you know, I think we're seeing progress with regards to partnership going forward. The county has already agreed to form this task force with us. So that was really big for us. Our next kind of frontier is really pushing to make sure that they empower this task force to have real influence. I think they understand that that's necessary for us. If the task force doesn't have influence, then there's no benefit to the task force in the first place. So that's not going to fly for us. I think they understand that. And then I'll just say for you, and also for Lynn, since she was speaking to the kind of lack of accountability. I already said this, but I'm just repeating. We are pushing to get Supervisor Rodoni or another one of the supervisors to come to Corte Madera either this weekend or next and do an in-person. I'm hoping at the actual parking lot of the, on site where they're planning to do this project, to come in person and be accountable to the vote, to our residents and answer their questions in person, because we haven't seen that yet. So I think that is really necessary, right? Because we've got a lot of folks coming to us for answers. I'm turning around to the county and saying, look, you guys you need boots on the ground here in Corte Madera to answer people's questions in person. So that's what we're working on right now. I remain hopeful that we're going to get this partnership up to where we need to be, and that's based on the receptiveness that the county has shown so far. We had a really productive meeting with them last week. Todd, Adam, and I with Supervisor Rodoni and a bunch of top staff on this project at the county level. And I think they're certainly coming around to being able to understand, all of our frustrations that Todd did a really good job explaining just now of, why this process doesn't work for us and doesn't work for our residents. I hope that answered your question. Feel free to give me a call or email me if you want to talk about this further. I think we got through all of Lynn's questions. We've got a couple hands up from Lucinda and Barbara again. So I'm going to bring them back on if they have another question here. And then we'll see where that puts us time-wise. So it's going to be Lucinda next and then Barbara.
Thanks, Mayor. I just wanted to follow up a little bit on some of the comments that Lynn was making and make sure for this home key project that we understand as a town what the impact financially is going to be with regard to the lost tax revenue. And going forward, I hear a lot about, we're going to be doing this and that, but what is really going to happen if the county doesn't listen to us? What are we going to do? Is that when we go and we sue them? I see it as just everything is moving forward. And yes, we want to see success, and I commend us for looking forward. I want to house the unhoused, but I don't want to make a situation that is detrimental to those of us that are longtime residents, number one, or that are worried about security. We live in a safe town. We want to stay in the safe town. We don't want it to be in any way turned into something other than. So I'm very concerned about that. And I think we need to make sure that we have the power to say, no, you can't do that in our town. And I'm not hearing that.
Oh,
yeah. Oh, do you want to go ahead, Todd?
No, go ahead, Mr. Ray, if you want to, but I'm happy to.
Sure. Lucinda, we all hear you. I think we all agree with you. The problem is that, as I've said repeatedly, we don't really have leverage here as a town. State law is pretty cut and dry. The county is not coming to us for permission because they don't have to. So what we're doing right now is trying to go back to the county and say, hey, look, just treat us as a partner, right? Out of good faith, be a neighbor, treat us as a partner. I think we're very mindful of the fact that our leverage is very limited here. With that said, Todd's been very clear. All options are on the table for us if we're not able to get a satisfactory level of partnership from the county. We're actually holding most likely a closed session on Thursday with our town attorney, and we're just going to explore, potential legal angles to come at this from if worst comes to worst, God forbid, and we are not able to get what we need, the commitments, the assurances we need from the county on this project. So all options remain on the table in that respect. Todd, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, I would just say, look, I heard a lot of early on comments from community members being confused about, well, Milpitas and Novato are suing them, and why are you not? Well, just so you know, Milpitas and Novato haven't filed any lawsuits, and they most likely will not. And I'll tell you why in a second. But, you can't sue. What are you suing over? You can't sue until there's a purchase. Well, today there was a purchase. And so now the question is, as a town, like we talked about, and the mayor said so perfectly, we and I want to show this document because this is the basis of this conversation, because this home key, the thought of home key is exactly what all the cities and towns in this county have agreed to years ago. And so this is what we want to do. The process is the part. And so, you know, what we've done is, this is what success looks like. If we went through a process, this is most likely what it would look like. And we're trying to get there. And I'll just tell you, I don't know what your perception, the people on this call in the community, what the perception is of staff or the council. But I'll tell you this, if you go ahead and you reach out to some people that you know in other cities and towns and you compare and you ask for reputations, what I'll tell you is that you have a good team that represents you. And I'll tell you this, that we, like the mayor said, we'll evaluate all options and we will position the council to make those decisions. But if they were not to meet our simple request, we haven't asked for anything that's you know, that we wouldn't ask on any other project, or they wouldn't ask on any other project, they will receive Corte Madera's best shot, and we will be heard. And so we have not taken a soft approach. We've taken a partnership approach, but strong in what we think should happen. And it's taken us some time on exactly what we're asking for, because we needed to hear from our community. And now it's really clear on what that is, as the mayor said. And so we have a window of time. The next 3 weeks, 4 weeks are really critical for us to see if we can put this on paper, Lucinda and everyone else, like, so you can see in an agreement what we came to, and did we meet those marks? If we fall short, then we'll have to evaluate options. But as the mayor said, there are things in our playbook. It's more political, it's more partnership, it's more big picture, what the universe looks like of our relationships in this county. But from a legal standpoint, it's a tough one. Milpitas backed down from litigation because they had a third party that was threatening to sue them, which Milpitas most likely would have lost that lawsuit, as well as a lawsuit potentially from the Attorney General of California, because they're violating state law and affordable housing law. And so that's why they backed down, and that's why that really changed their process. Not every project is created equal, so we're all a little bit different. As the mayor said, a purchase has been made now. We've put in our ask. We think we're making progress. We feel as comfortable as we possibly can now. I'll feel more comfortable when we have our citizen group in place. That will be on the 18th. We were going to do interviews on the 18th. We're accepting applications until Monday, the 16th at 5. We'll appoint a council member. I believe it's going to be Fred Casisa at this point. That'll be part of the interview team with Adam, myself, and Rebecca. And we will begin interviews on the 18th to have this team in place immediately to do this work over the next 3 to 4 weeks to see if we can get to success. If we get to success, great. Let's keep doing the work of the group. If we can't, the council will have a multitude of options available to them to make sure that Corte Madera's voice is heard. So I can't emphasize that enough. And I just want you all to know that we're taking this serious. Your staff, your council, I mean, the three of us, especially, you know, Adam and Mayor Beckman, have spent a lot of countless hours, as well as the communications team with Rebecca and Mike, you know, on this for the last 30 days. And it's not our project, and it's really frustrating for all of us. So we hear you. And like I said, when I see Lynn on the call, I know Mayor Beckman and Adam too, you know, we hear your frustration and your words and your voice. Like, we've been paying attention, and we hear you. So believe me, we're going to get there.
Are you getting enough time with the county to mitigate this 1 minute that you were given at the supervisors meeting? That is unacceptable that somebody else gets 2 minutes and we as a lesser town get.
Well, I think
that was frustrating, Lucinda, but we are in very close contact with the county. We're using all channels that we have available to us. So that's public forums, like their supervisors meeting, like bringing Supervisor Rodoni to our meetings, and also staff level meetings. And I'm having private conversations with Supervisor Rodoni and other supervisors pretty regularly. So that was frustrating today, but we are in very close contact. So you can rest assured there. Guys, we're at 5 o'clock here, so we got to wrap up. Thank you so much, Lucinda. I wanted to bring Barbara back on if she had a chance, because her hand was up, but if not, so you guys can go if you want, but I'm going to bring Barbara back on here, last hand up, and then we will wrap up for today.
And again, your priority, Mr. Mayor, it's a reminder to everyone, is that I know because you've been saying it and you're doing it, is to make sure the Board of Supervisors get on the ground go to the site and communicate with our community to answer their questions. And that's your priority immediately. You want to see this in the next week to 2 weeks max. And so that's been your focus. Yeah.
Thank you. All right, Barbara, any closing thoughts for us?
Just really quickly, I just, in terms of Lynn's comments, I wanted to say many Corte Madera residents submitted written comments to the Board of Supervisors ahead of the meeting and didn't bother going to the meeting, because I'm not at all surprised that you ended up having 1 minute to address the board. That does not surprise me. So I'm not sure if these written comments were acknowledged or taken into consideration, but I don't think it wasn't just the people at the meeting who were expressing opinions. And that's it, sorry.
Good point, Barbara. Very, very true. And I imagine kind of the same as for our town council meetings, where we get a lot of written public comment before the meetings. And even if those comments aren't ultimately read during the meeting, your council members, and in this case, your supervisors, still are forwarded the messages and read them. So we do take those into consideration. Alrighty, guys, you have all been very patient. It is 5:02, so we're going to wrap up. Thank you to everybody in the community who joined us today and asked some great questions. I do feel like we're making progress on this issue. It's definitely a challenging one. I think it's kind of crazy to say that, you know, this is the year of COVID and economic collapse. And yet, in my opinion, the most difficult thing we've confronted as a town is this freaking home key project. So, you know, it's a crazy time, but we're doing our best. And I think we're getting somewhere finally. So thank you to everybody who joined us. Thank you so much to the staff for taking the time to be with us and answer folks' questions. We got a council meeting on Tuesday, so we will see you then, if not sooner. Take care, everybody.